Hello awesome people and welcome back. Today we're going to talk about the top 10 business English phrasal verbs. Get out your notebooks and pens and let's get started. And the first phrasal verb is follow up. In business, it's always important to follow up on things because if you don't, you might not find out the information you need. Also, after you send someone an email, it's always good to follow up, especially to make sure they've got it. So for example, hey team, I just want to follow up on the proposal I sent to you last week by email. Does anyone have any thoughts? The second phrasal verb is back up. And no, I'm not telling you to go away. I'm talking about business and technology. Nowadays, we use the computers a lot, don't we, when we're doing our work? And because we use files like Microsoft Excel and Microsoft Word, we always need to make sure that we back up our files, okay? And backup means to save another copy of it somewhere, okay? So for example, your boss might say to you, remember to back up your files because we don't want to lose any crucial data. Next on the list is bring up. And if you bring something up in a meeting, then it means you mention it or talk about it. And of course, if you have a meeting, sometimes there's something you want to bring up, right? So, for example, I always like to bring up some interesting information that I learned during the week in my weekly meeting. The next phrasal verb we're going to talk about is always used a lot in business and every accountant's favorite word, maybe, and it's cut down. And cut down is all about reducing and usually in business, that means reducing spending, okay? So when your boss talks about cutting down on something, he means to have less of something. So for example, a boss might say, oh, we need to cut down on our spending next month because last month we made a huge loss. Maybe we have to fire someone. Moving on to the next phrasal verb, which is set up. And if we set something up, or set up something, then it means that we initiate or organize something. So whether that's a meeting or a project, we can set it up. So for example, if you want to have a meeting with your supplier, you can say to them, let's set up a meeting next week and we can go through the details together. Moving on to our sixth phrasal verb. That's right, we've got up to number 6. Wow, thank you for staying here so far. But you're learning, so congratulations. But our sixth phrasal verb of the day is look into. And if we have a problem, it's always important to look into it. It means investigate or find out some information, okay? So for example, maybe there is some interesting data that you have got from a market research that you've done, or maybe even from sales data. And maybe you will need to look into it to find out more information. Let's look into this market research and find out who is really our target market. The seventh phrasal verb is go over. And go over is used a lot in business, especially in discussions, negotiations and meetings, because go over means you examine something carefully. You look and read something carefully. So, for example, before we seal the deal today and make an agreement, let's go over all of the details again to make sure everything's correct. Moving on to the next phrasal verb, point out. If you're in a meeting or a discussion and you see an error or maybe there's some wrong information, then it's always good to point it out. So point out means to highlight or mention something. Usually we use it because there's an error. But you can also use it to talk about some good things as well that you just want to specifically highlight or mention. So for example, you can imagine you're in a meeting and one of your colleagues says, excuse me, I'd like to point out that there's an error in this report. The numbers are wrong. The next phrasal verb, the ninth phrasal verb, is run out of something, okay? And if you run out of something, then you had it, but now you don't have it anymore. So, for example, you can run out of money, which for a business would be very bad. Or you can run out of time, which you can also have in a meeting or a discussion if your time that you have available is no more, okay? So, for example, I can say, oh, I'm sorry, but we're running out of time, so we need to end this meeting. And actually, we're running out of time in this video. But luckily for you, there's one more phrasal verb coming up. And last but not least, our 10th phrasal verb is take on. And if you take on something, then that means you accept a new responsibility or a new challenge. And in business and professional settings, teams and people need to be ready to take on extra responsibilities and challenges. So, for example, your boss may set up a new project for you, and your team or you can say, yes, I'm ready to take on this project and I'm willing to contribute. And I hope that you're ready to take on the challenge of learning all of these 10 phrasal verbs today. And if you want to learn something else, make sure you press this button here. Thanks so much for watching.